Yo guys, Vision here back with more Call of Duty Warzone content, bringing you the best loadouts to be using right now in Warzone. And in this video, I will identify the best meta weapons to be using as of right now, following the latest update for both the new map, Haven's Hollow, so Resurgence, and also Verdansk on the larger map, with various different types of builds to cater to different styles of play. So on that note, without further ado, let's get right into it. So first things first, what I'll do is I'll provide you guys with 6 weapons for all kinds of different playstyles, both fast-paced sub-players, slower ARs, sniper builds, and even sniper support ARs to help cater to 2 different types of players. Whether you guys are trying to use a sniper and play slower, whether you want to be faster sniper, there's all different types of attachments that I'm going to go over in this video. And what I'll do is cater this to 2 different types of playstyles, show you the gun with a lot more detail in itself with regards to what attachments I would personally use based on my playstyle, and then try and give you guys a bit more detail as to what these attachments are actually doing, how they're going to cater to your playstyle, because I appreciate there are so many different attachments in these games, and there is a lot of detail that maybe some people, more casual players, weren't really aware of what they're actually doing, the negative effects, and also the pros, of course, as well. And what I'll do is I'll detail the first couple of weapons in a bit more detail with regards to the attachments, what they're doing, and then briefly sort of go over the rest of them at the end, so I don't go over into too much detail. And of course, we want to keep this video nice and short for you guys. And then right at the end, we'll wrap it up with a bit of a summary on the time to kills of all of the weapons that we've gone over in this video, kicking it off with the first and arguably the best gun as of right now with the MXR AR. Now this is the third unlocked AR in the game, which is arguably the #1 gun to be using as of right now. It's kind of close between the Mirage AR, which we're going to go over as well in this video, but the first weapon we're going to kick this off with is going to be arguably the best gun in the game right now, the MXR. And for this weapon, like I said, there are going to be tweaks that I can make and sort of demonstrate and discuss as to why I would make these tweaks. But for my initial build and my first setup for this weapon, I would be using the Redwell compensator, the 18-inch rift barrel, the Volt extended mag, which gives you 45 bullets, and the Fisher rear grip, as well as the recoil springs fire mods. This is going to give you guys a well-balanced setup, as long as for the most part a lot of recoil control to help this thing stay accurate at medium to long range gunfights. And of course, without a sight on it, this is more catered towards Resurgence, which is what I would typically play. Whereas of course, if you're going to be playing sort of the longer range gunfights in the big map with Verdansk, then therefore you're going to have to sacrifice one of these attachments and play to have an optic on your gun, of course, which is where you're going to have that slight sort of argument between yourselves on whether you want to lose ADS, whether you want to sacrifice some of the recoil control, which for the most part you wouldn't on a big map because you're typically taking those longer range gunfights. Therefore, if I was going to be playing the big map and play the sort of Resurgence on the Verdansk map, I would typically take off the Fisher rear grip and therefore just use an optic instead. Or of course, if you guys don't mind the recoil and you can sort of suffer the consequences of not having maybe the recoil springs, then keep the ADS speed to give you guys that advantage versus in those sort of faster paced gunfights, and still have that long range benefit as well. But it's all again up to preference. The whole point I'm going to address here in the first sort of part of this video is that you guys need to understand that these attachments, although they are going to be meta attachments to help complement the best meta guns right now, it still comes down to your playstyle. And therefore, if you are not a fast player, you need to consider what is going to benefit and sort of lean on your strengths rather than what I'm trying to tell you is the best right now. This is more my build and how I would complement this gun based on my faster playstyle. But again, if you can control the recoil, you can sacrifice some recoil attachments. If you can't, then lean towards having more recoil control. And that's typically the way we're going to go with this video and how I've typically done these loadout builds before in terms of guides, and giving you guys a full picture on understanding what you're going to be sacrificing and what you're going to be gaining by using certain types of attachments. And it's the same for all types of guns. It's not just ARs, it's the same as a sniper, and of course all of the submachine guns and even the LMGs as well, which we'll go over in a future video next week. But for this gun, I would say this is typically a really well balanced setup, and we can improve it by doing the following attachments. So for myself, I would definitely keep the muzzle as it is for that vertical recoil control benefits, but for the barrel, we can look at changing it up for various different reasons. Whether you want to sacrifice the rift barrel and try out maybe the hybrid to give you guys the ADS and speed benefits, or of course you can try and use the first barrel to give you guys more damage range at those longer range gunfights. Again, comes down to what type of gunfights you see yourself playing in more. Same for the mag. If you guys think that you're running out of ammo too frequently, whether you're playing big map and you're fighting multiple people at once, who knows, you maybe could try and use the second or the larger extended mag. However, you're going to be losing that ADS and sprint to fire benefit as well. By having a bigger mag, it slows the gun down, so just bear that in mind. Same as the rear grip. Rather than the Fisher, if you guys find that you can control the recoil for this weapon, try out the quick draw grip. You're going to get a lot more ADS benefits as well from this. So if you're a faster player and can control the recoil benefits, you're going to best sort of use this quick draw to try and speed up your engagement benefits and just try and sort of boost that faster playstyle with using an AR. But of course, if this is more catered towards Resurgence, whereas if you're playing big map, I would typically just take off the rear grip in itself and probably put on a sight. And then same as the stock, we can try and make this thing beam more by using either a weighted stock, or of course you can make it a faster build by using a mobility stock and just take off the fire mods. The fire mods and the rear grip would be the two attachments I would say can be interchanged. The magazine, of course, I think is an absolute must. It just depends on which type of mag you want, depending on how many times you think you need to reload, whatever it may be. But for the most part, I would say the fire mods and the rear grip can be interchanged for whether you want a stock or an optic, and that is pretty much the MXR in itself. As for the submachine gun with the likes of the MPC, this is probably the best submachine gun in the entire game right now. I think it's in a bit of a standalone conversation with regards to all of the other subs that are currently meta right now as well. I think this thing is just the absolute best weapon to be using as a secondary, with the KNS compensator as the muzzle, which is going to give you again that vertical recoil benefit. You can try and look at different types of attachments, but there are going to be several different attachments in this build which I'm about to show you, which is going to give you all sorts of recoil control advantages. Whereas for most people who use submachine guns, you typically want to use this gun for the lightweight benefits to try and speed it up so that you're faster in those close quarter engagements. So therefore I'm going to give you guys a more accurate build, because this gun, I will appreciate, can have quite a bit of a kick on it and does not really treat recoil quite lightly. Therefore you have to control this thing pretty well, especially at those medium range gunfights. But again, if you're playing Haven's Hollow and you find yourself in those building to building gunfights more often than maybe the street gunfights where it's more medium range, then maybe you might want to cater this build to a more faster paced build, and therefore you can consider using other attachments, whether it's a prestige attachment or more simply just mobility based. So we're going to go over that in a second. But firstly, for my build, I'm going with, like I said, the KNS compensator for that vertical recoil control, the 13.1 Razorback barrel, which is going to give you guys recoil stabilization and ADS speed benefits to try and speed up a little bit whilst also maintaining accuracy, but you're going to lose that damage range drop off. So bear that in mind. At medium range on those street to street gunfights, you're going to lose a bit more of a TTK benefit. Whereas if you want to use the things like the long barrel or for the medium range use, or of course the hybrid barrel for the bullet velocity, that is up to you. And I would say depending more on your playstyle, but I'm more building to building with this submachine gun, and therefore I still want to maintain some ADS but still have that recoil control. For the underbarrel, we are using the VNS drift lock underbarrel, which gives you guys the horizontal recoil control, but you could definitely change this, and I've considered it too and tried out for myself, the quick step foregrip or the flow guard to give you guys that movement speed and sort of advantage in the mobility department. Whereas obviously the initial one we're going with is horizontal recoil control, so if you're straight away sacrificing that, you need to understand that this thing at medium range is going to move left to right a bit more often, which it definitely, I would say, does more so than most subs in the game anyway. So just bear that in mind, but that is how you sort of balance out the speed benefits as well. And then for the magazine, we're going with the sustain magazine, which is simply the only one I would consider using. I think 30 bullets is just not enough bullets, and anything more is just going to weigh this gun down too much. And for a submachine gun that already doesn't really have much ADS and sprint to fire in my build already, we definitely wouldn't sacrifice this any other way. And then for the final one, you could either change this in various different ways. We are currently using the Medusa stock, but I would definitely say you can consider using either tactical stock for more mobility, or even just lose the stock in itself and either use a rear grip for that ADS and sprint to fire benefits, whether it's the quick draw grip or not. You can try out different builds, but this is what I've been using. And then for the rest of the guns, like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to go over in a bit less detail so that I appreciate I'm not going to duplicate anything and just sort of repeat myself with regards to these attachments. But just remember, bear in mind that these attachments are going to cater to your playstyle. Whatever I use, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the bingo spot for yourself, and whether you guys find that this attachment is going to be better for yourself, you will have to try and use with trial and error and repetitions. Sometimes you just need to understand what the attachments do, and then you'll figure out how it affects your playstyle as you go on. So that's all I can really say from this point onwards. Hopefully, like I said, these details will help you, but it's all down to how you guys will implement this into your playstyle, and whether a gun that you make is fast paced is going to mean that you have to speed up, or whether you want to just simply change the build to play to your slower playstyle, whatever it may be. If I'm building this too fast paced or too much recoil and therefore you feel like you can sacrifice that, that's completely down to you guys, so just bear that in mind. Which leads me nicely onto the sniper, which I think that the build I've made is more catered towards quick scoping and faster paced playstyle, whereas a lot of people will use the Recon sniper as a more longer range snipe build, whereas this build that I've got for the Recon definitely doesn't cater for that sort of playstyle. Like I said, it's more building to building and faster pace sort of sniping, which is what I would typically find myself trying to engage in. Whereas, like I said, there are different builds which I will go over in a little less detail on how you would simply balance out this sniper build to try and cater to those long range gunfights where you're going to be ADS'd a lot more often, and you're going to be wanting with things like aim walking speed benefits and flinch resistance and all of those sort of things, whereas I'm purely looking for ADS control and maybe a bit of damage range in there as well as bullet velocity. Now the Recon itself, I still haven't found the sweet spot, I will say that, but I have found that this build that I've got is a really quick version of what I'm trying to achieve in terms of my playstyle, but I still find that the bullet velocity is somewhat not really understood for myself at least, and I have seen that some people are landing consistent long-range shots, so I would say that this build is definitely what you want to avoid if you're not playing Resurgence and you're looking for that steady sniping playstyle at longer range, and therefore I would simply take off the likes of this prestige attachment, which I appreciate a lot of people may not even have anyway, and if you don't, simply disregard this attachment that's underbarrel and just put on the monolithic suppressor, which is going to give you that damage range and bullet velocity benefits, and therefore you have a straight up swap. And then for the barrel, I'm using the 24.9 barrel, which the 24.9 inch barrel, which is going to give you that ADS benefit as well as that bullet velocity, which is going to be easy. The underbarrel we're going to just skip past. Like I said, we're not even going to use the sort of prestige attachment. The magazine, we want to use the dash line speed one, which is going to give you one less bullet in the chamber, but you're going to get that ADS speed benefits, which I still think you should have regardless on whether you're playing slower or not. But of course, if you find yourself having to reload just before you're about to get a kill, then put on an extended mag, or of course just keep it as it is and maybe don't even use a magazine, and you can therefore use a laser instead. As for the rear grip, we're going to use the R1 shelf grip, which is going to give you that ADS speed benefit, which I do think you guys should probably have anyways. And then for the last one, we're going to use a stock for the Outpost Raider pad, which is going to give you that aim walking movement speed and that flinch resistance combined, which I think is a strong setup. But you can of course take this off and try and use a laser instead to give you further ADS speed benefits and of course sprint to fire in case you still want a bit of sort of quick scoping in there. And like I said, we've taken off that prestige attachment, but in case you guys want it, which is pretty OP, gives you so many speed benefits and rechamber stabilization speeds, all of these sort of things, then take off that monolithic suppressor, lose the damage range, and make it a faster build, which is, like I said at the start of this, which is what I have been going for with my snipers. Then for the backup weapon, I would say for this, I would definitely be going with the Peacekeeper. This is arguably the most versatile and strongest weapon in the game right now, not just as a sniper support, but in itself, it's so versatile. Of course, the biggest problem this gun has, and the most people will have with this gun, is the recoil control. So even though this being the sort of backup weapon for a sniper, we're going to still cater this for having a lot of recoil control, because even with a sniper, but you're going to still want to use this AR style weapon at times at sort of medium range and even close quarters, but you still may find yourself taking those longer range gunfights when you run out of ammo with your sniper, or you find yourself with multiple people to shoot at and you keep getting sort of picked off, whatever it may be. This is where this build is going to come into hand, especially for that bigger map, where I find the Peacekeeper is just the perfect mixture of fast paced, fast fire rate, and also really reliable when you balance that recoil control by using the K and its compensator again for the vertical benefits. We're then going to use the lateral precision underbarrel, which is going to give you that horizontal recoil control, because that is what we're focusing on. As for the magazine, we're going to use the extended mag 1, the Vulcan, which is going to give you 45 bullets, which I do think is enough even with the fast fire rate, and you don't want to slow this gun down too much, as of course with it being a secondary and still being the sniper support. With the rear grip, we're going to use the dive edge, which is going to give you those speed benefits for ADS and sprint to fire. Being a sniper support, this is very ideal. And then for the final attachment, we're going to use the MFS Counterforce stock, which is a prestige attachment, but is definitely ideal for that recoil control. However, if you do not have this, and I appreciate most people will not, and you don't maybe even like it instead, simply use either the EAM Blitz Fire stock, or use, of course, the Buffer Springs Fire mod for that recoil control as we went over earlier. And that is simply what I would use for the Peacekeeper build. A very versatile and easy to use weapon. When you use these attachments, it can shoot at sort of medium to long range, but for the most part, we are taking those sort of closer quarters to medium range gunfights with this style of build, with it being a sniper support. And you're going to want to play more posted up and resort to this as a backup weapon in all cases when you're playing it out in the open using that sniper and you're not playing at that faster paced playstyle. Whereas of course this gun is just going to bail you out of certain situations more so than any other backup in terms of a sniper support gun as of right now in this game with regards to the current meta. Now as we look to wrap up this video, and I'm going to speed through this final two weapons, as I appreciate this video is going to go on forever at this point if I carry on talking about all of these attachments. I'm just trying to make this as user friendly as possible. But for the second best AR in the game right now, even arguably the people's favorite in terms of being used over the likes of the MXR, the Mirage is a really easy to use and versatile weapon. For my build, I'm simply going to be using the Lethal Tools ELO, which is a preference point. The optic is always up to the player's preference, but this is just typically what I would be using. The Redwell 556 compensator, which again, I'm not going to go over any of the details on these attachments. The 16-inch Redwell barrel, the extended mag 1 for its 45 bullets, and then the assault diversion stock for the strafing and movement speed. But you can also consider using either the trunk mix stock for that recoil control and flinch resistance. However, if you don't need the strafing and you're a more aggressive player and want to play faster, either take off this grip and use the needle tail sort of rear grip potentially, or even for more recoil control, then you can consider using the A1C accuracy grip instead if you find that you want further recoil control. And that is pretty much the Mirage in weapon itself. For the final weapon in this build, in this guide video, arguably the second best sub in the game right now due to its high ammo count with its fast TTK and reliable handling and ease of use. The carbon submachine gun is incredible, using the KNS compensator, the 14-inch Rock Lee barrel for damage range, the Dapper Guard underbarrel for both speed and recoil control benefits. With 40 round mag, I don't really use the extended mag, and therefore I would use the Bombers quick grip for the speed, and then also use the accelerated recoil springs fire mod for the more recoil control. However, I will say, if you're considering taking off the fire mod for the fact that you don't need the recoil control, then I would also suggest, if you have it unlocked, use the Prestige magazine, which is going to make this gun way faster. Of course, it does lose slight damage range and velocity, but if you want a demon speed sort of gun and build in itself, this thing is godlike, and this is typically what I would use instead of using the recoil springs. But of course, you can tweak it and change it around, as we've learned throughout this video in itself. But for the most part, that is pretty much the guide in terms of all of the best weapons right now, the 6 #1 weapons with regards to the 2 best ARs, the 2 best submachine guns with regards to reliability and versatility, not necessarily based on TTK, and as well as a sniper and the best sniper support gun in the game right now. And then quickly, as promised, what I'll do is quickly summarize the time to kills of the 5 main weapons, not including the sniper, of all of the weapons we've gone over in this video. So for the MXR up to 15 meters, this has a 600 millisecond time to kill. The Mirage has a 594, making it slightly faster at close range. The Carbon and the MPC both come in at 560 TTK, with the Peacekeeper having a 621 TTK, but it's also up to 40 meters as well. So from 0 to 40 meters, the Peacekeeper actually has an incredibly fast TTK, but anything past that point is where it drastically slows down in comparison to the other ARs. And then as up to 40 meters, the MXR has a 623 MS time to kill, and the Mirage has a 664. So as you can see, anything between 15 and up to 40 meters, the MXR does have a slight advantage. So depending on how you sort of perceive these in terms of what you're trying to look for, in terms of what your builds are looking at, this is the sort of TTKs that you need to consider when you're factoring in your builds. But as you can see, the Carbon is really good at that close and medium range, and is really going to be a reliable submachine gun, far more easier to use. But in the higher skilled hands, the MPC does slightly edge this gun out, with being the #1 picked A submachine gun in the game right now. But with that said, guys, hopefully you found this video useful in terms of providing you guys all of the details on all of the attachments right now to be using on your weapons, and also absolute meta weapons to be using right now with regards to time to kill, ease of use, and also just comfort builds with regards to certain attachments, or whether it's based on your own playstyle. That's for you to decide, but hopefully this will help you guys in building your own best loadouts. Let me know down below, guys, in the comments if there's any other guns that you want me to go over in the next video, which will be coming out next week. And also, if you have any cool clips that you might want to share, or any comments about this video in terms of feedback, let me know down below, guys, and I'll get right back to you. I'm Vision SGen. Hope you enjoyed the video and found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.